The Holy Gospel according to St. John, the first chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. True light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, but his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become the children of God, who were born not of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh, and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. The Gospel of the Lord. In some ways, I've always felt like Christmas morning is like waking up from a dream. So much of Christmas Eve has a kind of dreamlike fantasy quality to it. The lights are dim, the candles are lit, everybody is looking at the tree and all the other kind of beautiful things that are around. And yet, even though we still have all the decorations, the candles are still here, the tree is still up, and all those other kinds of things, the lights are on. The day has dawned. We see everything in the light of day, and it's kind of like the dream is over. As you know, in fact, much of our Christmas preparation actually involves thinking about and living like we're kind of in a dream. We like to have a dreamy, fantasy-like situation during Christmas time in which we believe that stables are clean and fresh and the hay doesn't smell and it's really nice and warm and cozy. We like to believe that shepherds are these really nice guys that you would like to hang out with. Just like all the people in our extended family, right? That we tell ourselves, every one of them we just want to hang out with because they're such nice guys. That's our dream. And we like to think about a place and a time where the sounds of angels are being heard overhead, and that just fills the airwaves with peace and joy and happiness. Then Christmas morning comes along, and even though everything's still up, we see everything in the light of day. Most of our presents have been unwrapped and the suspense is gone. And even our gospel reading for Christmas morning says absolutely nothing about all the dreamy things we like to think about at Christmas. There are no stars. There are no angels. There are no shepherds. Yet John's gospel does begin in a dreamy kind of way. He begins it with this word that says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It all has the sound of a dreamy fantasy world. God is an idea or a force that somehow is out there, and if we could transcend all of this, we might, in some respect, be able to connect with that otherworldly, dreamy reality. Except then John goes on, and he wakes us up from the dream world. The Word became flesh, John says. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. That is, God turned on the lights and became part of the real, messy, everyday world that we live in. God, the God who made the world, has decided not to live as a dream above the world, but to actually become part of it. And that world, that real world, is a world where things are messy and muddy and they smell bad. The real world is a place where people are real people, and they're actually often obnoxious and difficult to get along with. The world that God becomes a part of is a world in which there may be, and people may experience, the occasional voice of an angel, but it's usually drowned out by all the rest of the noise and the confusion and the chaos that's going on around us. And maybe that's why this gospel reading is actually, for centuries, the primary text, the primary gospel reading for Christmas. Lots of people think that the most important story and the most traditional story of Christmas is the one with the shepherds and the angels and things like that, but it's been this story. This, in the beginning was the Word, the story from John that has always been the key story for Christmas. Because the reading for today is the reminder that the message of Christmas is for the real world that we live in, not the dreamy fantasy world we so often want to create. Jesus is God's intervention in the real, everyday world we live in right now. And even though Jesus always calls people to seek things that are above, he acts here and now, and cares for people as they are right now. That's why I always find that it's interesting that in John's Gospel, even when Jesus calls people to seek things that are above, he demonstrates the power of God, never by telling people to transcend their reality and feel better and wait for heaven. Instead, all of his signs are about helping people right here and right now. So he actually heals people who are physically blind. He gives life to people who are physically dead. He feeds people who are actually hungry. He even turns water into wine so that the party can continue right here and right now. And if the real message of Christmas is that God has turned on the lights and become part of our real world, then we're also called to be followers of Jesus who don't live in a dreamy kind of fantasy faith, but live a faith that's part of this world, this real world, right now. We're called to be people who recognize that God wants to become flesh in us too. We're the people through whom God is continuing to make his love known in actual, concrete ways in the life of the real world around us. And we're the people who are called to make God's light not a dreamy postcard picture, but an actual, real, living expression and of tangible reality in the lives of people around us.